Welcome back. We are taking a look at one of the new decks that we'll see on I get it hopefully before, but around Wednesday, I think. Maybe late Wednesday if we know the release times of Magic DLCs on Steam. Anyways, this DLC deck pack 2, the third DLC for Magic 2013, is gonna be released on the 4th, which is, as far as I can see, Tuesday for PlayStation 3, and on the 5th for Xbox users and Steam users. And it's gonna be released on the 6th for iPad users. We are going to get the Gruul deck, Berserker Rage, and this deck that I'm taking a look at right here, which is the Orzhov deck, the white-black deck, Grim Procession. And huge shout out to Wingspan TT and Top Tier Tactics, and also the community at the Wizards page and forum for revealing the context of these decks. And I decided to make a couple of videos. Here's the one on the Grim Procession deck. As you'll see, just like with many of the new decks, they've decided to put, including the Terramorphic Expanses for them, they've decided to put 39 instead of 40 cards in the default decks, and then 21 lands instead of 20, and that is probably to deal with the mana situation in the deck a little bit, even though it's, I don't know, I don't think it's optimal. Anyways, and as far as I know, there are some card ramps in this deck. There's no mana ramps in this deck, so it's another one of those. Anyways, let's take a look at it. First, the creatures. Angel of Flight Alabaster is a really nice card, or it could be in the deck build that I proposed, or in the deck that I proposed for the Orzhov deck, but it's less of a powerhouse in this deck. It's a 5-cost 4/4 with flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, return target spirit card from your graveyard to your hand. That's all nice and well, but when there's not too many spirit cards in your deck, then it's not a huge deal. Let us count them, and I'm going to spoil a little bit. No, let's count later. But as I just revealed, there's 2 Bloodgift Demon. Actually, you can unlock one more, so there's the option of running 5 Bloodgift Demon, which is insane, and that's a nice way of card ramping. For those of you who don't know it, it was in the Liliana's, what is it called? I don't know. In the discard deck, Liliana deck from 2012. It's a 5-cost 5/4 with flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, target player you choose, either yourself or somebody else, draws a card and loses 1 life. It's a fairly nice trait, and you'll see that this kind of deal of using life as a currency of gaining card advantage or something else is a theme that they don't play with as much as in the deck that I proposed, but they do play with it a little bit, and this is one of the ways that they do it. Bloodhunter Bat, you get 3 of them, and we have it in the Obedient Dead deck, and I'm not too thrilled about it, and that at the same time it kind of makes sense that they brought it along, because it's a 2/2 for 4, which is kind of annoying or kind of expensive, but then it has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, target player loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. So that's a way of gaining some of the life back that you can use to buy cards from the demons. Divinity of Pride is another way of gaining life, and because it's a card that we know from Exalted Darkness. It's a 5/5 spirit avatar, 4/4 creature with flying and lifelink. And as long as you have 25 or more life, and there are several ways to gain life in this deck, it will gain 4+4+4, which basically means that it's an 8/8 flying lifelink creature. Pretty insane. Doom Traveler is a 1/1 for 1, and we know this card because it's been in is it in Peacekeepers? I think it might be, but it's also in I don't think it's in any other deck this year, but it was in the black-white deck from last year. What's it called? I forget. Anyways, it's basically a 1/1 for 1, and when it dies, you get a 1/1 white spirit token with flying. Pretty nice, I would say. And the good thing about it is that it plays to the idea of using spirits or creatures as currency, something that you can sacrifice for other games, and you have 4 of them in the default deck. Gravedigger is a way of getting your creatures back from the grave. It's a 2/2 for 4, which returns a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Guardian Seraph is a nice way of slowing down your opponent. Basically, it's a 3/4 for 4. Which deck is it in? I think it's in. I forget if it's in the Act of War or if it's in something else entirely. Maybe it's in the Celestia deck, Collective Might. Not entirely sure. Anyways, it's a it's a 3/4 flyer, and if no, it's in the Aura Servants deck. That's where it is. Okay, if a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you, prevent 1 of that damage. So it's basically a way of slowing your opponent down a little bit. You get to run 1 of them. Keening Banshee is a 4-cost 2/2 flyer, and when it comes into play, you may you may deal, or you may give target creature -2/-2 until end of turn. That's a nice way of killing creatures with regeneration, and it's a nice way of taking care of creatures which are damaged during combat and so on. Mourning Thrull is a 2-cost 1/1 with flying, and whenever it deals damage, you gain that much life. So that's basically lifelink, except that it doesn't say lifelink. So if you have a way of giving it lifelink, you can gain double that amount of life. You have 2 of them. You have 2 Onyx Mages, which we know from the Grinning Malice deck. It's a 2-cost 2/1, and for 2, target creature you control gains Death Touch until end of turn. Then we have 2 Orzhov Guildmages. They're 2 costs, 2/2s, just like every other Guildmage. And for 3 mana, either 1 white or 1 black, and 2 colorless. With the white, target player gains 1 life. With the black, each player loses 1 life. So that's a nice way of putting pressure on the situation and putting your opponent on a bit more of a clock, but also gaining yourself some life. Again, with the life as currency theme. Restless Apparition is also a pretty nice card. It's a 3-cost, either black or white, and it's a 2/2, and for 3 mana, again black or white, it gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Other than that, it's unspectacular. It is a spirit card though, but we'll take a look into that later on. Then we have Sanguine Praetor. It's an 8-cost 7/5, pretty insane, pretty big, pretty expensive. It has the following ability. For 1 black, sacrifice a creature. Destroy each creature with the same converted mana cost as the sacrificed creature. I think that's a little specific. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of it. It's probably not going to be in my build. Very expensive card, and you'll see there's a lot of expensive cards in this deck. Shepherd of the Lost. It's a 5-cost 3/3 flying, 1st strike vigilance. It's a pretty nice card, again with the demons and the angels, kind of like last year's iteration of a black-white deck. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. It's a little expensive. It is a nice card, and while I'm not a huge fan, I'm not against it, and I think it would have gained. I think instead of putting one of like so many different kinds of creatures where there's just one of this, one of this, one of this, two of this, one of this, you should have put more copies of the same creatures in the deck. But yeah, I don't know. That's my opinion. Voracious Hatchling is a really good card. It's a 6/6 for 4. Or rather, it comes into play with 4 -1/-1 counters on it. It has lifelink, by the way. So it basically comes into play as a 2/2. But as soon as you play a white spell, you remove 1 -1/-1 counter. And as soon as you play a black spell, you do the same. So two Orzhov Guildmages will make it into a 6/6. That's pretty interesting. So it means that it starts as a 2/2 and it basically grows. It's a shame that it's not a spirit and that it's an elemental card, but you can't have it all, I guess. Debtors Knell is such an expensive but such a good card, and it fits this deck much better than it fits the Exalted Darkness deck. You have an option of running 2 of them, by the way. It's a 7 cost, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card in a graveyard, not your, but in a graveyard, into play under your control. Very cool. Fits entirely well with the Orzhov theme. Necromancer's Covenant is an enchantment where you, when it comes into play, it's a 6 cost, by the way, also kind of expensive, but you remove all creature cards in target player's graveyard from the game, and then you put a 2/2 black zombie creature token into play for each card removed this way. That might be a lot, it might not, but at this time there should be at least a few creatures in your graveyard that'll give you, let's say, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 zombie creatures. And all of your zombies have lifelink, so that's pretty interesting. 3 Pillory of the Sleepless, we know it from, again, last year's black-white deck, and we know it from Exalted Darkness. It's an enchanted, it's basically a pacifism for 3 mana. 1 black, 1 white, and 1 colorless. Target creature can't attack or block, but it also has the following text: at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, which means that the controller of the creature loses 1 life each turn. Pretty nice, and you have an option. You have an option of running 3 of them. I think you can actually unlock 1 more. Yeah. What else do we have? We have Midnight Haunting. We have a single one of those. I'm not sure. Nope, we don't have an option of unlocking more of those. Those are extra spirit creatures, but not spirit creatures that go into your graveyard, mind you. You have 2 Unmake. Very, very powerful. 3 cost, remove target creature from the game. Basically exile it. Very, very powerful. You have 1 Zealous Persecution, which is a 2 cost buff, and it's a buff spell in a sense, and it also deals it gives all of your creature, your entire side, +1/+1, and all of your opponent's creatures get weakened with -1/-1. So you put in effect you put a +2/+2 chasm between you and your opponent, or your creatures and your opponent's creatures. Is very, very good. It's also a nice way of taking care of a bunch of 1/1s or one toughness creatures while you buff your own side. And again, we have 4 Terramorphic Expanse, and we have a Soul Feast, which is both. Yeah, it's kind of unspectacular. You can only target a player. That player loses 4 life. You gain 4 life. It's nice, and at the same time, it's all right, I guess. It's a sorcery, by the way. You are, as I've said in multiple videos now, you're not able to put any, or you're not able to unlock any promo cards for any of the deck pack decks, which is a shame, but I've talked about this far too much, so let's just move on and say there's not 40 but 30 cards which can be unlocked and which you can use to build your deck with. Essentially, Some of the cards that you have are you have two options of running one or two of these tainted sigils, which are dual-colored artifacts. It's a one black, one white, one colorless cost artifact, and when you can sacrifice it and gain life equal to the total life lost by all players this turn. Pretty interesting. It's a nice way of dealing with or taking advantage of your opponent losing life or of regaining life that you've lost yourself, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, maybe if you maybe it's all right, because contrary to the Celestial Light deck, which only uses which either uses life gain to stall or life gain to buff singular creatures, in this deck you use life gain to draw more cards, or use life gain to utilize certain abilities, although they haven't really played too much with this this idea or this theme, or as much as I would like them to. Anyways, Angel of Despair is a 7-cost. We know it from both the Exalted Darkness and again from the black-white deck from 2012, and it's a 5/5 for 7 flying with the following ability: when it enters the battlefield, destroy target permanent. Pretty nice, but a little bit expensive. Blazing Archon is entirely expensive. It's the final card that you unlock. It's a 5/6 flying creature for 9, but it does have a pretty insane ability. When you have this card down, no creatures can attack you. That's pretty insane. So you can't be attacked. So your opponent, unless he can deal with this creature, he has no other way of killing you than basically doing direct mana burn damage, or sorry, not mana burn, doing direct burn damage to you. That's the only way of dealing with you. Yeah. You have another Bloodgift Demon. You have a Deathbringer Liege, as we know from Exalted Darkness, 5-cost 3/4 that buffs white creatures, black creatures, dual-colored white-black creatures gets +2/+2 instead of +1/+1. Whenever you play a white spell, you may tap target creature. Whenever you play a black spell, you may destroy target creature if it's tapped. You get a second Divinity of Pride. You get the option of running up to 3 Falkenrath Nobles. It's a 4-cost 2/2, basically a Blood Artist with flying. It's a flying vampire, and with whenever a Falkenrath Noble or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Pretty neat, but a little bit expensive. I guess it's an expensive Blood Artist that you can use to attack with. And considering its ability, it's not that expensive. It's pretty good. Ghost Council of Orzhov is the second to last card that you unlock. It's a 4-cost 2 white, 2 black legendary Spirit Lord creature, which works pretty well with this guy or girl. 4/4. Whenever the Ghost Council of Orzhov comes into play, target opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. And for 1 colorless, you can sacrifice a creature, remove Ghost Council of Orzhov from the game, return it to play under its owner's control at the end of turn, which means that it again comes into play. You gain 1 life, they lose 1 life. Pretty interesting mechanic. It's also an interesting way of, whenever it's targeted, whenever it's dealt damage and it's about to die, you can just bounce it, take it into exile for until end of your turn, and pretty interesting. Or until end of whoever's turn it is. Ob Nixilis is a great card. It was in 2 decks last year. It was in the white-black deck, and it was in the Liliara discard deck, and it actually, just like last year, it actually merits running the Terramorphic Expanse, because it's a 3/3 for 5, which seems pretty unspectacular, but it has a landfall ability, which means that whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player lose 3 life. If you do, put 3 +1/+1 counters on Obnixilis, the Fallen. Very, very nice way of draining your opponent, gaining and making your creature bigger. It's a really, really good card. Still Moon Cavalier. I think that's the only summon spell that you have which gives you zombies, which is a shame because along with Necromancer's Covenant, it would be nice to have more zombies with lifelink. So yeah. But this guy is a 2/1 for 3. It has protection from white and black, which means that you can't target it yourself either. But your opponent can't target it if he runs white or black or any combination of those. For 1 mana, white or black, it gains flying. For 1 mana, it gains first strike. For 2 mana, it gets +1/+0. So it kind of reminds me of one zombie knight creature, which I don't remember what it's called, from the zombie deck from last year. You can run up to 2 Vampire Nighthawks, also pretty nice. It's a nice way. It's a 2/3 for 3, flying Death Touch, lifelink, and which means that when you deal damage, you gain life. Another way of gaining life, basically. Vishkal, the Blood Arbiter, is a really, really nice card. A little expensive. It's a 7 cost, 5/5, flying and lifelink. But you can sacrifice a creature, put X +1/+1 counters on Vishkal, the Blood Arbiter, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. Swing in there, do a lot of damage, gain a lot of life. Then you can remove all +1/+1 counters and transfer them as -1/-1 counters onto target creature. So basically, you sacrifice one of your creatures, make your guy bigger, swing in there, do damage, gain life, and you can remove all those counters, and you can basically remove all those counters and take out your opponent's creatures. A very, very powerful card. Again, using your creatures as currency. Voracious Hatchling, already talked about it. You get a second one, which is great because it's such a great card. Before we move on, let's just take a look at how many spirits we have in this deck. Archon, Horror, Spirit Avatar, that's 1. It was a Vampire, Spirit Lord, that's 1. So that's 2 so far. 3. I'm not talking about spirit creature tokens. I'm talking about spirits that will actually hit the graveyard. That's 4. 5, 6. 6, I guess, if you choose to run all the spirit summons. I guess it's kind of significant, and you can use your Angel of Flight Alabaster to bring those spirit cards back from your graveyard. I guess that's nice. That means that you can play a little bit haphazardly with your spirits at least, or sacrifice them and bring them back. And I guess especially the Keening Banshee is pretty nice because you can, in conjunction with Ghost Council of Orzhov, you can sack it, bring it back, cast it, give your opponent's creature -2/-2, sack it, next turn, gain it back, etc., etc. So that's a nice combo. Enchantments, you get another Debtors Knell. You get 2 Edge of Divinity, and that's another. It's a Eventide card, I think. Edge of the Divinity, or a card Eventide, yeah. So it's from the Eventide block, I guess, or Shadowmoor block. I'm not entirely. I think it's called Eventide block. It doesn't give your creatures any neat abilities like the mark or the rune of the Deus, which gave your creatures or gives your creatures a double strike and trample, or the Scourge of the Nobilis, which gives your creatures fire breathing and fire breathing and lifelink, but it does give. It's very cheap. It only costs 1, whereas Scourge of the Noblest costs 3, and the Runes of the Deus cost 5. This costs only 1, and it gives your creature, if it's white, +1/+2. If it's black, +2/+1. It's basically a holy strength and a unholy strength in 1, because when you cast it on a dual color creature, it's going to get +3/+3 for just 1 mana. That's pretty insane. You have 2 of those. You have another Pillory of the Sleepless, which means that you can run 4 of them altogether. You have 2 Unmake, which means you can run 4 altogether. You have 2 Zealous Persecution, which means that you can run 3. Nice buff spell, nice removal for weenies at least. Then for sorceries, you have some pretty interesting cards. You have a discard card, or not a discard actually, but a very nice control card. It's a 2 cost, and target opponent reveals his or her hand, choose a non-land card from it, and remove that card from the game. That is nice. That is a nice way of taking away your opponent's options, and not only putting them in the graveyard or not putting them in the graveyard, just taking them entirely out of the game. That's pretty interesting. Damnation is a nice mass removal card, basically. It also kills all your creatures, but it works well, just like mass removal works well for the Golgari deck. It works pretty well for the for the Orzhov deck, basically because you have the option of running, for example, the Falkenrath Noble, which, just like the Blood Artist, will deal damage to your opponent equal to the amount of creatures lost, and you gain that much life. And Ghost Council of Orzhov and so on. You can sack your creatures, gain stuff out of it. Like you can sack. You can sack a creature, remove Ghost Council of Orzhov, cast Damnation, regain your get your Ghost Council of Orzhov back at the end of the turn. And depending on, for example, if it's late game, you have Debtors Knell down, then you're gonna get all your creatures back. So there's so many different ways of taking advantage of. The thing that strikes me is that the Orzhov Guild are at the same time very, very religious. That's why you see all these angelic and demonic themes. You see spirits and so on. You see, for example, Zealous Persecution. You see all these things that have this religious kind of connotation to it. And and then at the same time, they're bankers and a kind of like a syndicate in the sense that they're a big kind of corporation, mafia, banker, conspiratory kind of religious cult deal. Very organized, very powerful. And they deal in different currencies. They deal in spirits or creatures. They deal in life. They deal in, well, not so much card and mana in this build, but that would be another way to build it. But certainly life and creatures is a currency to them. And that's where the banking or the banker theme comes in. You also have Reanimate, which is a great way of, like, if you just get this guy down in your graveyard, don't worry, you'll gain enough life to justify using Reanimate to pay 9 life to get it into play. Your opponent will not be able to attack you in most cases unless he can remove Blazing Archon, and you'll have different ways of regaining your life. So very powerful, very strong. Vindicate is a card that we know, and there's only one of them in this deck, but it's been in the white and black dual color decks of this year Exalted Darkness and last year's deck. It's basically a removal card, destroy target permanent for 3. Very good card, and yeah, a shame there's no more of them, but you have so many ways of, like, this deck is more about removing creatures and dealing with creatures and self-sacrificing creatures and so on. So yeah, basically very interesting and strong deck, and I like the very controlly deal, the very controlly part of of this deck. I'm not entirely sure if I would have built it the same way. Obviously I wouldn't, because there are some things that I disagree with in this deck, but yeah, basically I would have put more spirits in there, but you can't have it all, I guess. Still an interesting deck, and I look forward to playing it. So tell me what you think about it, tell me what you're going to run, and if you like it, and so on. So please leave a like if you did. If you didn't, do whatever you want. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm Multimeteor. This was the Orzhov deck. Let me see if I can remember the name. Grim Procession. There it goes, or there we go. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Later!